Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined, as you can see, by my cat Zora, and not by Dakota Lasky, not by Doom Crossing, but by my good friend Gooey Fame. Goo, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, just a chill Saturday so far. Just haven't done. I played a lot of Blossom Tales today, actually. Which is a cute
Nice.
little Zelda-like game for any of you guys out there. And I'm going to be talking about it next week on the ZeldaCast if anyone wants to check that out. But yeah, it's been a nice day. Nice calm day. Took my dog for a walk. It was nice.
Oh, that's nice. Here it's like downpouring, so I'm hoping that the weather doesn't affect the stream quality here between me and you.
We got like some I don't know. We got like some overcast cloud things going on here, so it's probably going to start pouring. I would say any second. It's like that hot rain, and it's
hot rain.
Hot rain. So yeah, we are going to do our second ever Alien in review today, which is
special.
yeah, the new sub-series that we started here on the podcast that is all about the Alien franchise. And of course, everyone that's a fan of Metroid probably knows that the Alien franchise was really instrumental in inspiring a lot of what we know is like the core concepts of the Metroid series. And so we thought we'd just take a journey throughout all the movies and just kind of talk about them and you know, the general overview and then how they relate to Metroid, and then just talk about the movie in general. And that is something that Goo and I have been doing for a long time together. If you didn't know, we have another podcast called Virtual Theater. That is a podcast about video game movies and the stories that shape them. That's been going on for 4 years,
4
I think.
years.
Yeah. So we're pretty well versed in this.
Yes, and if I may, I want to do a plug within a plug.
Oh.
We're on this podcast, plugging our podcast. Within the RSS feed of our podcast, I have another sub-podcast called Movies That Whip with our good pal Adriel, where we discuss movies that whip ass.
Yes.
And we probably, actually, by the time this comes out, I will have released our episode on James Cameron's Avatar.
Oh.
So, yeah, if you're, you hear us talking about this James Cameron classic and you want to go hear some more, I would go over to the Virtual Theater feed and give it a listen.
I'm going to listen to that. I feel like Avatar had such a strange journey, because when it came out, everybody loved it. It was the highest grossing movie of all time. Actually, to branch off to my thought here, I was thinking about James Cameron today, because obviously James Cameron directed Aliens. And I was just like, man, James Cameron directed... I always think of, like, when I grew up, Titanic was the highest grossing movie of all time, and it seemed like it was, like, forever, right? Like... And I think it was only there for 12 years. And it's funny because, like, I think Avatar has been the highest grossing movie of all time now for longer than Titanic was. But it just seems like... Or I guess it's not anymore. I think Endgame took it over or whatever, didn't it?
It is again.
Is it? Okay.
So there was... Endgame passed it. And then just this past year, they did a special re-release of it in China. And it has now... taken the lead once again.
Yeah.
So thank you, China.
Yeah, I can't wait for that Avengers Endgame with like 5 minutes of extra bonus footage to hit theaters too.
That's probably what they're like. Shoot, we got to start. We got to do that again. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was just to say that like it feels like it hasn't been that long since Avatar took over Titanic, but it's actually been longer. But my original point was what a strange journey that movie's had, because like I feel like when it came out, everybody loved it. And then it feels like everybody kind of turned on it right away and was just like, it's just Pocahontas and there's nothing memorable about it. And I was always just kind of like, I don't know, I really like this movie. Like, it maybe doesn't have the most original story, sure, but like it's such an awesome movie to like look at and experience, you know? Yes,
we don't go beat by beat on it, but I would recommend anyone who's curious to rewatch it. And I think we talk about certain aspects of it, how, one of the big things I do in the episode, I'll spare you of it, is... If you go on Wikipedia, you can find this too, but there's just like paragraphs and paragraphs about the inspirations that went into making it, like different types of stories and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's insane because it's literally like it's inspired by like every story ever. And so like all the comparisons that people are like, this is like this or this or this, it's like, yeah, it's actually trying to be like that. And I
Yeah.
think, I don't know if we make a great case, but we state, I at least I think that some of those ones people bring up, I think it's a better version of those stories for a lot of reasons. I
Mm-hmm.
think it actually kind of is a at times is kind of an inversion on some of those stories too. But yeah, it's actually a pretty cool movie. I think it's
Yeah.
worth the revisit.
Well, from one James Cameron classic to another here, we're going to talk
Hmm.
about Aliens, the sequel to Ridley Scott's Alien. But before we do, just want to very quickly plug as well while we're plugging the
Keep it going.
Omega Metroid Summer of Metroid Madness tournament rolls
Oh,
on OmegaMetroid.com. By the time that you guys are listening to this, I want to say it'll be either the final four or the last matchup. So make sure that you get over there and get your votes in. We've already had some people come in and cause some pretty massive upsets. I think your bracket's actually better than mine. So that tells
wow.
you all you
I was
need to
trying to go
know.
check it actually because
Yeah.
my bracket's name is I have only played one Metroid game.
I love it. Yeah, there was that one, and then right above it there was like I am Sam, which is my wife, who's also
She's
doing
beating
better
you
than
too.
me. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is rolling on right now. So all your favorite, I hope that all your favorites are left. I'm assuming that Samus and Ridley and the like are still there, but anything could happen. So you never know. Get over there and go vote. You can win some. Well, you can't win anymore, but if you entered before, you could have won some Omega Metroid swag. I'm actually waiting for mine to be delivered to me right now.
Ooh.
So yeah, got a couple designs in the pipe and might have some exciting news for that. But enough shilling, enough plugging. Let's do this Alien in
Hmm.
review. And
Let's do it.
I think I'm trying to decide where I want to start here. And I think what I
There's a
want to
lot.
do, I think what I want to do is give this movie kind of an apology because I think that for a
Okay.
long, long, long time, I love Alien. Like Alien is one of my favorite movies. It's so awesome. It's like sci-fi horror. The creature was such like this force of nature, indestructible like threat. Like everything about that movie I think is so good. And I kind of was disappointed for a long time that Aliens didn't keep the tone of the first one and didn't like it's more it's sold as like more of an action movie, and it is more of an action movie, but
Definitely. Yeah.
to me there was something that I just didn't like. Maybe even I would use the word resented about it for kind of like making the aliens themselves seem like indisposable or not as threatening. And I think I just like need to kind of I don't know. I think I kind of got shed that mentality for the last time last night. I've actually watched this movie. I want to say 3 times in the last like calendar year, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just
Twice
have.
for me.
So while I was watching this, I was just like, you know what, this movie is really good. It is really good. Okay, this movie is awesome, and I think that like once you kind of get over, or once I personally got over that it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, I really started to appreciate it for like what it is, and like
Mhm.
it's really like awesome movie. And actually when I was watching it last night, I really did kind of admit to myself, I'm like, it's not like necessarily like that action packed, or you know what I mean, like it's like it
It
slow builds.
it has like one in the middle, like kind of when they first
Mm,
get there and stuff goes wrong, and Ridley's driving the truck and it's awesome. And then, but before that, it's a lot of more. It's similar to like the other one where it's more
yeah,
tension and stuff like that. And then it goes down a little bit while they're figuring out what to do, and then it ends in this massive, scene. And
yeah,
I think that definitely qualifies it for a big blockbuster action movie for sure, but it does still maintain some of the tension, a little bit of the spookiness and stuff of
yeah.
the original.
I agree. I think that the middle part is certainly like it's certainly action packed when they get to the nest, and things go really wrong. But even that, like, I feel like they were like kind of restrained a little bit, and then they obviously the ending is like the big crescendo, and it certainly is an action movie, but it's not like I don't know, like I guess I was just thinking like when I think action movies, I'm thinking I'll pick like a Dwayne Johnson like San Andreas movie or something like that, right? Where it's like there's like a really big set piece in the first act, a really big set piece in the middle act, and like
Right.
this action schmozzle at the end. And like I think that we get like a moderate set piece in the middle that kind of informs how you like there's payoff when you go back to the end as well. So even though I did resent this movie for a long time, I don't know that it's really like as I don't know, like tonally different as I think that I thought it was. It certainly is different than Alien, but I think that it isn't like so far removed to feel like completely different, you know?
I think what keeps it connected while being tonally different enough, I think it's thematically very similar to the
Mm,
first one. Um, just in, first of all, with just the action stuff, to what you said about how it kind of makes the aliens more dispensable. It's true, you certainly see more get killed, but granted, they're getting killed by a group of people with like, you know,
yeah.
high powered weapons and stuff like that, which the miners or whatever in the first movie did not have. But
Mm,
second, I would say it still keeps a similar premise because this whole team of elite badasses gets totally washed by them.
yeah.
They happen to kill a few because they got these guns, but it's really like it's not they get completely wrecked. Like that middle action scene we're talking about, the thing you get across is after a half hour of building up them all going like, yeah, badass, yeah,
Yeah.
they just get completely wrecked, and the one guy is just all of a sudden crying and screaming and stuff like that. um and then I also think just thematically it keeps going with the stuff of like the Wayland Yutani
Yeah.
Corporation. You get more
Yeah.
of like the commentary of that. um and then also like stuff with like motherhood is kind of a theme that's carried over the story
Hmm.
with Newt. It's certainly presented in a more uh it's more of a like, I wouldn't say it's like a big blockbuster way. You got a kid in there, so there's that automatically makes it a little less like kind of edgy as the first one. I think you could say like Terminator is similar too. It's like, now we got to
Actually,
keep
yeah,
a
I
kid.
think that's a perfect analogy where like I also really love the first Terminator because it's also a little bit more of like a it's not horror, but there's some scary parts, and Arnold is so like him Arnold and the alien are like almost similar in that they're so imposing and so you know what I mean, and like the
Mhm.
sequels to both of them are clearly more action based in nature,
You
which
could
I
like
think
show your family this. It's like a
yeah
little too scary probably for the kids, but you know what I mean. Like
yeah
you could watch this with your parents, and it's like, oh, that's fun.
yeah well so when I was watching this last night too, I was kind of thinking to myself like everything that happens in this movie is very logical. Like it seems like
Mhm.
this is logically like what would happen next if Alien 1 were to occur. Where and we could we'll talk about this in specific scenes later, but even the beginning when like the slimy company is
Uh,
like all over
yeah.
Ripley, and then like she's insistent that they go back and destroy all of the eggs on LV-426. Like everything that happens just seemed like it's very practical and very
It's so
logical. Like this would
upsetting
happen.
in a lot
Yeah,
of ways. The beginning part, we are watching it when it was me, McKenna, and Nico, and at one point Nico was like, "The thing that sucks is that like this is exactly what would happen."
right. Yeah.
Like the company, oh, it's just they're so slimy. You hate them.
Even even from like from Ripley's standpoint though, like I think that what she does is also like everything that she does
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
totally makes sense, like to watch and to see. Like what she does is like, yeah, this is what I think a character in her position would do. This is what I think a character in the Wayland Yutani position would do. Like everything is very logical together, which I really appreciate about this movie actually, and it really kind of hit me last night when I was watching it. So yeah, I mean, Alien will always be my favorite. I
for
think that
sure.
I think that too, like kind of what I was saying, like it's I had to appreciate this movie for what it is, and I think that I kind of keep coming back to this idea where like okay, like if they were gonna make a sequel to Alien, you kind of have three options. Like you either have to be better than, worse than, or different than, and like it's pretty hard to be better than Alien. Like that's a awesome sci-fi horror movie. So like by definition, you're probably going to be worse than, unless you're different than, which this movie clearly opts to do, and it forges like certainly an identity of its own. So I've kind of really come around to this movie actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, in the realm of what this type of movie is, I think it's one of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not a full like, you know, it's not constant action or whatever, but I would say this is one of the best action movies like ever made.
I think I could agree with that. Yeah, because it's like it's how do I put this? The action, it's not constant action, you're right. But the action that does happen, like in the center part of the movie, and then at the end, feels like earned because they've built up the stakes.
Stakes are so, yeah.
Yeah, they've built up like you said, it was like half an hour of the team running around being like we're so badass and like whatever and like so it felt it felt like everything was kind of leading up to a crescendo, which is kind of like I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound like the old dude yelling at clouds or anything, but like I feel like in a lot of modern movies, you kind of have like an action set piece for the sake of having one, because I think a lot of movies feel like you need to have like this big, impressive scene where like a lot of crazy stuff happens, and I think that you do have that big impressive scene in this movie too, and a lot of stuff is certainly happening, but it feels like they got there in a more natural and earned kind of way. So
Yeah, oh yeah.
yeah, I agree with you.
And everything's like set up and paid off. It's really cool. Like obviously the final like payoff with the whole box loader thing that they, you know, that was like there's all the stuff is like that where it's like it's set up earlier, like you know, they establish like what this character's connection to these things are, and
Yeah,
I don't know, it's a very satisfying watch.
yeah, there is a ton of themes that pay off in this movie, which you know we can talk about in a little bit. But I do want to talk about how some of the themes in this movie, at like in my opinion, very clearly inspired the Metroid series. And of course, we know that Alien One, there were so many things that you know the whole premise of the movie pretty much inspired the whole premise of the Metroid series. But I think that there's a lot of things in the sequel, particularly, that when you look at them. Really you can see their influence in Metroid beyond just like the general like framework of the series, and two things stick out to me. There was a couple things, but two things I think very clearly stick out to me. And as you mentioned, the one thing that sticks out to me the most is that the central theme of Aliens is really about motherhood, and like you know you've got Ripley and coming to grips with losing her daughter, and then kind of adopting Newt, and then even like the queen alien like is in her own way like protecting her aliens, right? And I think that kind of central theme of motherhood is almost like combined into the Metroid series, and in the overarching story of like Samus finding the baby Metroid at the end of Samus Returns, and then it kind of becoming a central part of her life in Super Metroid, and then the baby, you know, sacrificing itself for Samus at the end of Super Metroid, and how Samus kind of you know that whole journey I feel like kind of mirrored how Ripley kind of not struggled with motherhood but like perceived motherhood in this particular movie as well. So I think that was something that they definitely looked at and were like, okay, we want to try and replicate this throughout Samus Return, Super Metroid, other Metroid Fusion, etc., etc.
Because what was out at this was Metroid was out by the time this came out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but not Metroid 2.
Not Metroid 2, no. Okay. Which actually is the second thing that I think very clearly they took inspiration from, they being Nintendo, is that in Metroid 2, we're introduced to these evolving Metroids, which go from Metroid to Alpha to Zeta to Gamma to Omega to the Queen Metroid. And I think that like the Queen Metroid is this ginormous monster that lays egg sacs everywhere that Metroids hatch out of. I mean, I think that they clearly, you know, they already looked to Alien for inspiration for the first one. I think that this is like a very clear, like, That's a cool idea. We should have a Metroid evolve into something that, you know, can produce more Metroids and stuff. And we've seen the Queen Metroids used very sparingly over the series. So I think that that's very like a very obvious like nod to this sequel.
It's got to be. And yeah, like, and it could also be too that just like after this movie, I feel like this is kind of like I think this is true of a lot of James Cameron's movies, but I feel like he kind of establishes a lot of like cinematic canon, you know, of how just like vibes, how things feel, you know, with just some of the designs and big story beats that people love and stuff. So I feel like even if it wasn't directly taken from this, it's almost hard to like escape it after this. This becomes like one of the definitive space things other than like Star Wars or something at the time, you know?
Right. And I guess like the creatures, like the aliens and the Metroids like kind of evolving and finding like a queen like figure is probably a natural like story progression for both of those to go into. So I mean, it maybe they probably would have got there independently of each other, but I do think that Metroid definitely looked at the Queen Alien and was like, that thing is awesome, and like I think that we could do something like this in Metroid. And I also actually think that so there's a couple scenes in this movie where Ripley is suffering from some pretty serious PTSD from her adventure on the Nostromo, as anyone would, of course. And I think that Metroid tried to replicate this, albeit in a very clumsy way, in Metroid Other M. I don't think that they did a very good job with it, unfortunately. But I do think that they were trying to kind of get across that same idea that like this is like really heavy and like this affects Samus, and seeing Ridley again after what he did to the baby Metroid is a pretty big deal. And I don't know that they really achieved that very well in Metroid, but I think that they probably took some inspiration at least from this as well, in that regard.
I can see why you would. Like, I thought that's a really great aspect of this movie. And like you mentioned, sort of it's not even just like, one thing that's cool about the movie is like, the more you watch it, there's all these like little things, like nice little details I like. Like, I feel like it wasn't just like about like being a mother and like finding a new daughter.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about it was like it's also about like Newt, like them both kind of like finding comfort in each other after going through a similar experience, which I liked a lot. And I like there's like some scenes with like Newt and her little doll, and she's trying to comfort the doll, and I found that like really nice because it, you know, it just reminded me of like the same thing that Ripley was trying to do for her,
Right.
you know. So I can see why you would totally want to go for something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like a good idea if you can execute it well. I don't think that they executed it very well in Metroid Other M, but I like in Aliens, I think that they did a fantastic job actually with Ripley, in showing kind of how she's stressed but not paralyzed by what happened before, but you know, just everything that was going on with her. I think that they did a really good job there. I think that there's another similarity maybe that sticks out to me. This is probably only for me. I don't think that, you know, the developers of Metroid looked at Alien for this kind of inspiration, but it was something that I noticed anyways, and that was kind of the I don't know, some similarities I guess between the characters of Bishop and of Adam from Metroid Fusion specifically. Whereas you have this synthetic that maybe you're not very trustful of, and then over time he kind of earns your trust and shows that maybe there's some humanity in this machine, even though it doesn't have, you know, blood and guts. It's still something that can do good and something that can be trusted. Which I actually think that's like a great theme independent just in Aliens, like her natural distrust of synthetics and stuff like that. And I think it's paid off like so well in that movie.
Should have said sorry to him.
She should have, yeah.
She
kind of did in her own way. What did she say? Like,
you did good.
You did good.
She says, or you did okay, or something.
Yeah.
And it is, but like I like Bishop going like, I did okay, or I did good. You know, it's like he's okay with that. So fine.
I actually read something that made me really sad when I was reading like an essay about this movie actually, and how it like it was an allegory for like the nuclear family, where like you have like Ripley, Hicks, Newt, and they liken Bishop to like the loyal pet dog. And I was like, damn,
Oh,
it's like
he is.
he
He's
kind of
always like.
is.
What's great is like he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna crawl down. I'm gonna crawl down in there. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah.
I don't know how he was doing that, because he was like slithering just like this, like he
There was
couldn't
a
move his
really
arms.
claustrophobic shot of him when he first goes in there, and I was like, oh my god.
And he was pushing that thing ahead. He must have been pushing it with his forehead, just like.
That's that android shit.
I hope that people have seen this movie and they're not watching this, being like, "What the hell are these guys
What
talking
are you
about?"
talking about?
So yeah, I kind of noticed some similarities for me between Bishop and Adam in here. Samus never really had an inherent distrust of synthetics like Ripley does, because she never really had a reason to necessarily. But I think that was
Yeah,
like
I mean,
similar enough.
it's understandable why Ripley might at first, based
Oh
on
yeah,
well, especially too because he's like there, on behalf of the corporation, much
Yeah.
like the last one, and we basically saw that Ash was essentially programmed to carry out their bidding like at all costs.
yeah. Well, and his programming was very clearly like, these guys are expendable, which it's hard not
Yeah.
to think that Bishop might not have similar programming. So I can understand that.
Again, a very James Cameron thing is like, the evil robots, like, let's make them lovable. Bishop doesn't do too much, but I feel like he is like just the way he's portrayed. Like maybe it's just Lance Hendrickson or whatever, but it's like, oh, he's like a cute guy. Like
he
I
is,
wanna
and
be
that's
friends with him.
it's another great example of aliens being different than, rather than like better than or worse than. You know what I mean? Like it's like.
It's like a spin on things you thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think it would have been really easy to have another android, but have it just not quite as captivating as Ash was in the first movie. It's actually like, we're skipping way ahead here, but I think that's what's so impressive about David and the Prometheus and Alien Covenant films. Like, I think he's kind of similar to Ash, but I actually think he's almost better than, like, maybe
Yeah.
not, but probably at least as good. Like, he's super
Well,
interesting and layered.
The thing is, like, it's more of an exploration of that character, where Ash or Bishop, it's more of a simple. It's like more of an element of the world, but it's not what the movies are about. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I almost kind of wish actually that the new ones were more just about David than the other stuff. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I
they
think
kind of are,
Covenant
but-
definitely is more about David.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about those movies until we
I,
get there.
I think the bad sequel route would have been like, what if we had another robot, but it's like even more menacing and evil. And certainly some of the things David does are like way more horrific or whatever, but there is like an exploration of that, so I can't just say it's like
Right.
a shallow, sequel thing.
Two more quick things here about how this movie in particular influenced Metroid. One, I can never. What is that big yellow, like the exoskeleton? Is that what we're calling it? Is that its official name? The loader?
It's like a cargo loader or something.
I don't know what it is. You can ask me 100 times to tell you what this thing is.
So
100
cool,
answers
though.
will be different. I don't know what it is. I can't. Anyways, the loader. We're just gonna call it the loader.
Uh-huh.
All right. So the loader is there's a very similar mechanism in Metroid Other M where you fight the deleter in, and it's a bad fight. It's not a good fight. But it's it looks like it was inspired by this loader. And then of course we have another escape sequence in Aliens, which is
classic.
You gotta have that in Metroid.
It was classic. The loader is sick too. I want to say, like, just an amazing thing they built for this movie. Clearly, like, every shot with it is like, how is this real? Like, even today, you know what I mean? And I love how they like kind of show you little shots that like they don't explain how it works, but it clues you in. Like, they have the straps on their foot and they lift their foot and it moves it, and it's like, oh, totally. It makes sense even if it isn't real. You know what I mean?
And speaking of Avatar, it's almost like those things come back in Avatar but evolved into like the
like
better version. They're so awesome.
Yeah, they're not just cargo loaders. It's like they made that and they're like, actually, this would be good for punching stuff. I
Yeah.
love the escape too. There's some impressive stuff that happens there. I was just like kind of marveling watching it this time at like how many different types of like crafts are on display, because you'll
Mm-hmm.
have like there's one part where they're running away from one of the, I think it's like the plane, and it's exploding and rolling, and that's like a miniature with like a matte painting background, and then it's like composited in the background of them like on the set, and it's rolling at them, and it looks so awesome. It's like crazy, and it's like just crazy, like all the detail that goes into making that, and how much
Maybe I'll watch.
different people.
I think I'll
What's
watch
that?
Avatar. I think I'll watch Avatar tonight.
Yes.
I think I'll do it. Um, so yeah, that was all the Metroid kind of inspirations or
Nice.
allegories that I found in this movie. There's probably more, and there's probably more if you really want to look at it with a critical eye for that. But yeah, I mean, if you are, I mean, if you're a Metroid fan, I feel like you should definitely be kind of paying homage to this Alien series for sure, because the Metroid series owes so much to these films. The first film, especially, and the second film, definitely. So yeah, I mean, if
I
you
don't know
haven't
about the
watched it in
other
a
ones,
while,
but
check it out. But yeah, let's talk about the actual movie now itself. We'll move away from like the Metroid reference or whatever, and just talk about like the actual movie now. And I figure we can kind of start with like talk about like the characters, and maybe we could talk as much or as little as you want about them, what they do in the story, how it impacts the plot, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like we should start with Ripley, right?
Yeah, there's something you said earlier I wanted to respond to about her actually that that was cool. You talked about like her sort of she's sort of like dealing with the what this sort of trauma, and she is paralyzed by it because she does not want to go back, which
Mm-hmm.
is like that's totally reasonable. And I liked how they were sort of portraying it like she's trying to stay busy with like she's got a job loading the cargo
And
or whatever.
Jonesy.
Ian Jonesy's there. But the thing I liked is like it. I think that's fair. I think that's actually like a fair, realistic portrayal that
Yeah,
she wouldn't want to go back into it. And what
totally.
like the thing that gets her to go, it the motivates her is like, well, hey, you could like be reinstated with your thing. And so for her, it's like it's sort of a chance. Like one, she thinks like, okay, maybe we can destroy these things, but two, like, okay, I can get my like life back,
Yeah.
and it's also too after finding out about her daughter, so she's
But
kind
we
of
should
like
mention
lost a
too, this
lot.
movie picks up 57 years after the original ended. So Ripley's been floating around in this escape pod for 57 years. So like she's
Yes,
literally lost basically her whole life, everything she knows.
she lost her daughter because
Yeah.
just by aging,
Yeah.
So I like that. Like,
I
it's
want
like
to touch on that
it
actually
felt like
because I
very real grief.
yeah, I feel like I always think that in sequel, actually, you know, the ones that come to my mind all the time are Jurassic Park. In like these sequels where they're trying to convince like the main characters to go back and into this very
It's like,
traumatic place,
why? Yeah.
and I remember like watching Jurassic Park 2, and I was just kind of like, okay, I can buy why Ian Malcolm is maybe going back, you know. And
Hmm.
then I remember in Jurassic Park 3, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's no way that, like, they would go back again. And, like, so I think that it was very logical how, like, they got Ripley there, clearly against her will, but put her in a spot where basically she only had one option. But I do kind of think, too, that, like, it was kind of well done how, like, vengeance played a little bit of part in her going back as well. Like I kind of inferred where she's just like, I'm trying to get my life back on track, but I also don't know that I have anything left to like to fight for other than like exacting vengeance on these creatures. So I kind of like that whole presentation, the way that they brought Ripley back. And then like man, Ripley is so awesome because there's so many sides to her in this movie. Like she's soft with Newt, she's tough with well
Hmm.
basically everybody, but like especially with like Hudson and with Burke, and then you know she's flirty with Hicks. There's
Hmm.
just like there's so many different ways that Ripley's presented this movie, but I think that she's like just consistently like so awesome. Sigourney Weaver is so awesome and like so authoritative, but vulnerable at the same time. It's such
Yeah,
an
she's not
awesome.
like
Oh
Yeah, I like how she like there's like just all the little stuff of like she the of course like these guys who are coming in guns blazes don't think like, oh, maybe we shouldn't like shoot this room up or
Hmm.
whatever. She's the one who gives them the info on that. I like all those little things, like kind of how like she learns how to, shoot the gun in this and blows up the eggs or whatever, but I like how so much of it is just tied to her experience like as a worker, like
Yeah,
the final fight is her in like a cargo hauler fighting like boxing with the alien,
which
which
is
is great.
awesome.
I love the scenes where like just her and the alien are like doing the like squaring up. It's like, yeah, but yeah, so much of it is tied to like a very real, like real life experience, and it's not just like,
Yeah.
um, it's not like a regular action movie where it's just send in someone who's,
You know
you know,
what? Like the thing is too is like there are lots of times where Ripley is like clearly scared, and when she's briefing like the team and they're all kind of goofing off, she's like, "Are you finished? Like we're going up against this like incredible dangerous
yeah,
threat here." Like, and I think that
a lot of,
no one else really grasps it, and I guess it would be hard to. But yeah, I think that like she's so commanding when she's on screen, and she's on screen for almost all the movie, which helps the movie. But yeah, just like everything about her, like her mannerisms, her vulnerability, her courage, I think that Metroid should have looked at Sigourney Weaver very
mhm,
closely and been like, okay, if we want to make Samus like a more of a character in Metroid Other M, like here's a good template to model her after, and
mhm,
they went a different way, which is too bad. But I mean, clearly, like Ripley is like she is
yeah.
Samus before Samus.
Yeah, that's when I guess I don't know too much about Other M, but I imagine it's probably a little bit harder because in a video game, you're so like you can do just like these insane things, and part of like Ripley's appeal almost is that like even in that last scene where she's got her like the iconic image of like her and Newt, that
Mm-hmm.
everyone posts, it's like she's just like she's got the gun or whatever, but otherwise she's in like plain clothes, you know what I mean? She's very like a realistic feeling character in this
Yeah,
like crazy action sci-fi movie, and like Samus is a video game character, so plenty of them do have vulnerability or whatever, but it's probably a little bit harder to portray when you can like jump 3 stories high or whatever, or
Shine
punch through
Spark
a
three
wall.
stories high, Gooey. Shine
Yeah,
Spark.
I don't know what Samus actually does, but she
Yeah,
shoots
I see what
things
you're saying. I
with
think
her
they.
hand.
I mean, I think they could have done it much better. But like
I'm sure, yeah.
to me, yeah, to me, like Ripley's like clearly such a like a I was gonna say a good role model, but like a clearly it's like something
Sure,
to
yeah.
aspire to in terms of writing like an awesome action hero that you can like. I don't know. Like to me, I
She's
think that
kind
like
of a
the
role model too, actually. I think if you watch this, you're like,
yeah,
you watch this and you like identify with her more than anyone. You're not like,
totally. I was about to say like you watch. We've talked about this on virtual theater a lot, but you watch a movie with like The Rock, for example, and I like The Rock a lot actually. But
mhm,
you watch a movie with The Rock, and like he doesn't really have very many vulnerabilities ever. He's always got a cool line to say. He's never really like too in trouble. He's usually calm and cool and collected. And like Ripley, I feel like has some vulnerability to her. Doesn't always know necessarily what to do, but just has the courage to get done what needs to be done. So I think that she's like this like one of the best action heroes like just in general.
yeah. Yeah, I love you mentioned like when she's like getting really intense and frustrated. I
Mm-hmm.
liked her portrayal there. Like, and it's like there's like I like too. There's like a wide swath of characteristics even within like this range of people who are there, which a lot are just like Marines or whatever. But like her intensity and like stress compared to like Bill Paxton's, where he's like game over,
Oh
man,
man.
is is one comparison point. But I also like too how she knows like it's almost similar to what she's dealing with in the first one, where she's like there's all these different kind of competing motives, and she takes some of her experience with that when she pulls rank and says, well, actually, like
Yeah.
this dude's in charge, and it's not because she thinks this person's in charge, but more because she's like to the company guy trying to like be like cool
Yeah.
his jets.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I like too that like she just does what needs to be done. Like that when I can't remember his name, but the CO is like freaking out, and she's just like, get out of the way, and drives. You know, like that's just like the awesome stuff that like heroes do, and it's not very refined. It's not very thought out necessarily, but it's like we need to do something. So and Ripley does
Yeah.
something.
She
So yeah,
that is great because she like first pulls the rank, and then they're like, "What?" And then like a bunch of stuff happens. But then after that, after it all goes to crap, she just starts. She kind of just starts like being
yeah.
like, "This is what we're doing," and it's like, and everyone
And
is
who's
just
gonna
sort of
argue
like,
with her?
"Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah."
Not Hicks, that's for sure. We can talk about Hicks next if you want. I think that he was like a solid addition to the
Hmm.
mythos here, and I was glad to see him actually like make it out of this whole ordeal. Uh, Worse for wear, but alive.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
I don't
for
think he
now,
sticks out well. Yeah, for now, spoilers. I can't wait to talk about Alien 3. I can't wait. I'm actually so
yes.
excited for that. But so I don't know that Hicks is like too three-dimensional, anything like that. He doesn't really have like a big arc. He kind of seems to like Ripley right away, trusts Ripley, encourages her. You know, is
Hmm.
probably the best thing about Hicks was that I think he was pretty on board with rescuing Newt at the end, where I think a lot of like people might have been like, ah, she's gone or whatever, and he was like, let's do it, but
Hmm.
let's get our stuff and whatever, and 'cause, yeah, it's just like a nice supporting character throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think he was pretty like reasonable in that. Like
Yeah.
he's portrayed pretty heroically. Like, because there was the part where it did seem like Newt was gone, and he was like, and Ripley was kind of freaking out a little bit, and he was trying to like kind of comfort her, but also save them. Where he's like, and I like
Hmm.
that response where he's like, "I believe you, like that she's alive, but we like have to get out of here, you know."
Yeah.
And then, but then he's down to go save her, or what, like
Yeah,
to do
I
that.
really like that because it's like I believe we clearly can't stay here though, so like we gotta go, right?
Mhm.
I've
And
liked that a
I don't
lot.
know if in that moment if he thought like he probably didn't think like we could get her back, but
Hmm.
was like, yeah, let's go for it. And he also just kind of he doesn't stand out as much right away because like the group they're with is like the most insane group of
It's a motley
characters,
crew for sure.
So he's like the most normal one, which kind of makes sense though why he's kind of like
The
there
one
at
who
the
makes
end.
it, yeah, because all these other guys have these like idiosyncrasies to them where it's like, is that like okay?
They
But I feel like
they
Hicks,
say all these like the corny action movie dialogue.
yeah,
I loved it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Hicks is the only one who's just like, I think we should nuke him from outer space. That seems like a good idea. And it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, that's like the best idea anyone said this whole movie. So he's very level headed. He doesn't add like a ton of flavor, I don't think, but that's okay because there's a lot of other like really
Kind of
flavorful
like
characters around.
I still like I don't know. I liked their little thing they had. It felt that also felt realistic. It didn't feel like
Mm-hmm.
totally forced, I guess. And like just for that little moment where they tell each other their first name feels
Oh,
so satisfying. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like I kind of like that it's there, even though it very much is a this is like kind of meant to appeal to everyone type thing. Like
yeah.
give you little feel good moments. Like
I like that
maybe
moment because I think like
yeah.
clearly in that moment where he's like Dwayne, Ellen, I think very clearly neither of them expect to see each other like ever again.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
it
love
was
that
nice.
part.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about who we want to talk about next. How about Newt? So Newt
Yeah, I like
is
Newt.
kind of a. I mean, she doesn't really have much to her character, although she is like quite smart. She survives like a week by
Yeah,
herself in the camp without the without the aliens catching her.
yeah.
So she is like definitely very resourceful, and I do think that it's kind of nice to see her warm up to Ripley, and I think that that
Mm,
relationship is very believable to me and very like well done. She does kind of
yeah.
she gets captured at the end and has to be rescued, and that's fine. But yeah, I think that she was again kind of a really nice addition to the movie, which is kind of like not funny, but I feel like sometimes when you add like kids and stuff to action movies, it can be either like really bad or really good. And I think that this one
Mm.
is mostly really good.
Yeah,
There's
all the
probably a
stuff
yeah,
with her and Ripley I thought was great. And I like how, like I said, I made the comparison between their two characters, how they're almost like kind of similar to each other. I
Yeah.
also like, obviously, by the fact that they're both like survivors of this, and they have a lot of uh they both have a lot of knowledge of the situation by just having survived it. Newt knows all the places
Hmm.
to like crawl and stuff like that. So I like that it's not just like it adds to that same theme of like, all this like military training or whatever like can't prepare you to this for
Yeah.
this. It's really about these people who are surviving
I think
that.
I think there were maybe one too many Newt screams in this movie for me. She has a high
Okay.
pitched scream. But yeah, I mean, other
Well,
than
like in the
that,
beginning, they did the thing where like it goes so high that then the sound, like cuts out. That was cool.
I really like the scene actually where like she's like going to sleep and then she's like, Ripley, don't leave me or whatever, and like they just kind of like cuddle and fall asleep. I thought that was like
Mm.
such a cute scene and like just really well done. Again, it kind of sells you on that
I literally
bond.
was like, well, I like, yeah, all their little conversations before that are nice too, where they're talking about their families and stuff like that. But I was also thinking in that moment, like, yeah, if I was in this situation, like, I would not want to be alone at
No,
all.
no way,
So,
dude. If
yeah, I
I
was
was
like,
Ripley, I
same.
wouldn't want to be alone. Are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah, I was like, I would stay with the.
Yeah. So yeah, Newt I think was a really nice addition. I can't wait to watch Alien 3, man. I can't wait.
Well, I hope not
I'm
for Newt.
I know. I it's been a while, but I remember. But let's talk about Burke. This guy.
Burke.
This guy is like he works for the Wayland Yutani Corporation. He's like the main bad guy
Oh
of the
yeah,
movie,
yeah,
and he
yeah, yeah.
seems actually like a pretty nice guy at the beginning of the movie. He's sticking up for Ripley. He's like kind of a lawyer or something like that. And
Mm.
as the movie progresses, you kind of Ripley pieces together that. So to set the stage here, LV 426 is where the original derelict ship was on that the Nostromo went to in Alien, and in the 57 years since, they've actually colonized that planet, and Wayland Yutani has this big terraforming device that makes it inhabitable basically, so you can breathe oxygen and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a colony there, about 100, 200 people, and this guy Burke tells this colony to go and check out this ship so that they can salvage it, knowing that they're going to get creamed when they go there. And he
Hmm.
does this so that he can take this bioweapon back and sell it to whoever. And throughout the movie, he tries to he locks in Ripley and Newt. Actually, I think right after that scene that we just talked about, where they fall asleep, and they're like face to face with a couple face huggers, and just does a bunch of really dastardly things. And it's kind of like, again, he's kind of like a perfect stand-in for the Wayland Yutani Corporation, because he's like
Hmm.
so slimy and self-absorbed, and all he cares about is money, when like very clearly like these things can't be controlled, but he's arrogant and thinks they can, and just like
It was another side of that too. Like he is this movie's Ash, and I like the idea in the first movie of like kind of portraying like it makes a lot of sense of like it's like the corporation is almost like unfeeling. It only operates
mhm,
in their interest. But I thought that was like a nice spin on it to have like kind of this guy's
a
now like
human, yeah,
the face. He's sort of the face of it in real life, like especially contemporary with the time. He looks like every like 80s business guy from any
yeah.
movie. You know what I mean? Like it's in the future, but he's got the haircut and the suit, that looks like he could easily be in the guy who's like gonna come and like shut down the community center. You know what I mean? And he does feel like in the beginning, like, yeah, he's like her best ally,
Yeah.
like just that she can get in the company. He's helping her out, but there's still like something that's off about the relationship. You know what I mean? Like it's uh like you could almost even like think like in the beginning like are they like setting him up to be a love interest? And then it's like
Totally. I'm so
but
glad that you
something's
just said
not
that, because
right.
that's what I totally thought the first time that I saw it.
And it feels like that, but something's off, and then as it goes on like he kind of shows more and more of like who he is
Yeah.
and they really are, and it's like yeah, I like his character a lot for sure.
You know who Burke looks like? Well, I can't remember the actor that plays him, but Yeah, have you seen the music video for "Don't You Forget About Me" by Simple Minds?
Yeah,
He looks like that. He could be singing
he
"Don't You
looks
Forget
like
About
simple.
Me."
Yeah, he does. He could also be in a new wave band or something for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So he gets his at the end, but he doesn't. I want to talk about this later, but he doesn't get his enough. I don't think.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about Bishop. I think we already touched on Bishop, so we don't have to spend too long. But I think that this is a great performance, very different from Ian Holmes' Ash. Very sympathetic because he has that like I don't want to say pathetic, but that's the word I kind of am thinking of, like that like longing to be liked and loved, especially by
Hmm.
Ripley. And he comes through clutch in the end, dude. That
Yeah.
scene where the alien queen, oh my god,
Yeah. It's a great choice of casting because I feel like Lance Hendrickson has a look, and he is in a lot of movies of like kind of like a sinister,
yeah,
like evil guy, and
scummy,
so that's
like
so it's like if you just looked at him and said like this guy's like an android, you'd be like, oh man, yeah, I wouldn't mess with him. But then, like the way, even just right when you first meet him, like the way he talks, he's so endearing, you know. And I think,
yeah.
yeah, you got to credit that to the actor for sure
And
of
it
like
feels like
knowing.
everyone's like talking down to him too, because like when Hudson's like do the knife thing and whatever, like he's just like it's like he's like hey come here and you know like so you kind of
Yeah,
get sympathy for him like immediately.
that's a great way to introduce him too, though, because you don't know
Hmm.
who he is before that moment, and then he comes in and starts doing the knife thing. You don't really understand
Yeah.
that he is this android. So there, it's like tense and creepy, and it's like insane. And then that's when you find out, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I love the way they introduced that.
Um, a couple of the Marines here. We only need to do a few and spend not very much
Mhm.
time on them. But Vasquez, I thought was really fun. She was a fun
Mhm.
character. I think her line where she's like, I think it was Hudson. He's like, "Has
Oh,
anyone ever mistaken you for a man?" And she's like, "No, has everyone ever mistaken you for one?"
I
I think is
I liked
so good.
all the shit talking between the group was fun. It's a bit
Yeah,
of unfortunate. I was thinking about this. This is like a bit of unfortunate casting. The actress who portrays her is Jewish, and it's
yeah,
clearly like they darkened her up, and they're
yeah.
like, I didn't mind like the where they made like kind of the comments. Like they made a lot of inappropriate comments, but it's like this feels very like realistic. But I was just like, why'd they cast her? You know what I mean? But she did a great job at the
Yeah,
role. But
it's
it
a
was.
tough spot. I feel like because like who's if you're an actress, especially not like a big name actress, like you're not gonna say no.
Oh,
But
I'm not mad at her or anything. I
yeah,
think it's
it
a
is.
weird
It's an odd
choice, you
choice.
know.
I actually, I didn't know that till a couple months ago when I was like reading about this movie, and I was just like, whoa, that's
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
yeah, it is weird. But I thought that she was good for what she
She
added
has like
in.
the big ones with the big gun on the side.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about the movie. Like when they first show their ship and they're panning across all the guns and all the big stuff. That's like all this badass stuff they made for the movie and stuff. It is badass, but like the most eerie music is playing, even though it's the ally ship, which I
Hmm.
like that. It gives it like it's showing all this cool stuff, but it's like I don't know, there's something that's like I feel like James Cameron and a lot of people, there's a lot of good directors who get this of like this stuff is like badass to watch in a movie, but it's also like not cool. You know what I mean? And I think that's portrayed with all of these guys.
Right.
Like there's probably a lot of people who quote a lot of this stuff unironically to each other, and they like find these characters like they're the role models or something. And I think that's because I don't know. He gets that there's like kind of an appeal of that to a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Um, Hudson got a good
Hudson.
line. Game over, man.
Game. Well, he's out of them the most interesting to me because he
Okay.
survives the longest, um, out of sheer cowardice. I think, which I think is cool because he spends the first whatever 30 minutes just it's all badass, and then he spends the rest of the time like just absolutely freaking out. Like no matter what happens, he's freaking out. There's like one moment I think where Ripley gets him to like get his shit together or whatever, but
Hmm.
then something bad goes again and he's just like freaking out. And I don't know, there's something like so pathetic about him that I found like
You know,
and he represents that to me actually that he like this badass Marine, but this is what he is at his core. He is a
Yeah.
baby.
I think I agree with what you said, but I do think that too. So like Hudson is like clearly losing it at the thought of these aliens or whatever, and I think that we're obviously meant to view him as like a big baby and kind of pathetic and like willing to like, yeah, send Ash to do that. Like, I'm not doing that. Or like,
Mhm.
and he's freaking out in front of Newt, and it's just like, come on, man, like get it together. Um, but I do kind of think that like it was a little bit refreshing to see that, because like I don't know, there's so many movies where like even in this movie like all these Marines are like ultra machismo and everything like that, and just like I have to imagine that like if something like this happened in real life, like you'd like to
Mhm.
think that you're calm and collected like Ripley and everything like that, but like how many of us would be like
Well,
Hudson,
yeah,
like so
that's
I think
I
that
would
there's
be
something
me.
very real
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, no, I found him very like human and like pathetic.
Hmm.
I mean that as like a compliment to the movie because some like I don't know, I kind of felt bad for him in a weird way.
Yeah,
Um
he kind of has a lame death as well.
I
Not the
can't even
best.
remember actually.
Okay, actually, just last person really quickly. I wanted to give a shout out to the Sarge, who was awesome and
Yeah.
also killed unceremoniously.
Let's
Uh,
that he's the best example of that part of that movie where they're going in, he has a cigar or
oh,
whatever, right?
he wakes
And
up from the cryo sleep and he's like puts his cigar in his mouth. I was
he's
like, yeah,
he's saying the most of those like you know military movie lines or whatever, and
yeah,
then yeah he's like the leader of the group like when they get hosed in that part, and I thought that was great. I thought he was great, but then I thought
yeah.
that all was perfect.
I thought he was great. It was too bad that he didn't. I would have liked to see him last a little bit longer, because I did think that he was very like an interesting character.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I thought that his performance was quite good and like kind of a nice, not, I guess it was like comic relief, but it didn't feel like comic relief necessarily, but like it was
Hmm.
funny. That
I
probably
mean
didn't
it
make
was
sense,
funny,
but
yeah.
yeah. I thought that he did a really good job. So yeah, I just like picked out a few scenes and themes and stuff like that we can talk for as long or as little about as you
Okay.
want. And I kind of went in order here in the order that they appeared in my noggin, so we could just go through and do this
Okay.
bullet list style. First of all, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I really do like how this movie like is very logical, and like I think that the scene of Ripley's hearing is like so I don't know, it's just it's so logical, and it's really good in a bunch of different ways actually, because first it shows Ripley being a badass and just being like, I'm not taking shit from anybody here, like this is what we need to do. It shows the sliminess of Wayland Yutani being like, well, you destroyed our $1 million spaceship, when clearly maybe the people
Oh
in that
yeah.
specific room don't know about the xenomorph, but like clearly other people do in Wayland Yutani. Um,
That too, but also just it connects with them like they wouldn't care either way, I don't
right,
think. You know what I mean?
right.
Like
It almost reads
yeah,
to me
sure,
like those guys know that she's telling the
but
truth, but they want to silence her almost. You know what I mean? And
and
that's why they're
and
doing it.
it, and there's no it's logical for them because that what she went through won't show up on like their spreadsheets, you know what
Right,
I mean?
right.
Like there's no like that's it it's both the movie's both logical and like emotional in that it shows that like they can't account for these things, and it's you feel from Ripley's POV having seen the first movie how
Mm-hmm.
frustrating it is, you know.
Totally, yeah. Like I actually think that this scene is like really awesome. Like it's a really important scene in this movie, because like it just kind of establishes Ripley, it reestablishes Ripley, reestablishes Wayland Yutani, and just kind of adds a lot of weight to like the first movie. There's so many times where like these catastrophic events happen in movies, and then the sequel just kind of like glosses over them, and like this one I think it kind of, well, not really. I guess it kind of doesn't. But this one at least acknowledges like, hey, we had this like awful thing happen here, and like this is the fallout from it. So I really
Oh
like
yeah,
that scene.
yeah,
Um,
I loved all the beginning stuff. Like I love like and just that the whole process of her going through that stuff, and that whole portion of the movie
Mhm.
is great. It's not. I'm sure some people would be like, "Oh, it's like a drag or something." But I think it's some of
So
the best stuff.
two quick ones here, and these were actually both. I believe they were both cut from the theatrical version, but they're in the version that we watched, anyways. The first one is about Amanda Ripley, who, for anyone that has not played Alien Isolation, which is a great Alien game, you should play that. But she's the main character of that. But obviously, that has nothing to do with this. But they just, I think that scene when Ripley finds out about her daughter passing away from old age and like having lived a decent life, I think that like really adds some weight to like Ripley and Newt later, and like kind of really shows you how why both of them would gravitate towards each other so much, because they've both just lost. And we kind of talked about this, but I think that that's like a very like integral scene actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it shows like it also works with, like I mentioned too, her going. It shows she's basically lost everything but her job. So
yeah,
yeah, which is
um,
not really that. It's like that's the best she's got, I guess. I don't know.
so speaking of scenes that were cut, I can understand maybe why this one is cut. When you meet Newt's family, and like her dad
Oh,
said this truck. I'm pretty sure this is cut from. Maybe I'm mistaken.
was it? Okay. I love this part.
So this guy, he's got his family in the back of his van, and he's just like this crazy derelict ship that looks super ominous and haunted, and he's just like, maybe we should go take a look inside. And I'm like, that seems like the worst idea ever, dude. And we never see him again. So
What are they? They're like scientists or something, though.
I think they're scavengers is what
Oh,
I'm trying to say. I was gonna say scavengers. Scavengers, and they're trying to secure whatever is inside so that they get all of the bounty for it. Which is
well,
again
it's kind of believe like there. I don't. Yeah, I think it kind of is like at least a believable portrayal. Like they're all there on this like this not a nice looking colony. You know what I mean?
no,
Like,
no, not at all.
I think they're already in a risky situation. I guess it's probably just normal for them.
I wonder why someone's just like, you know what, we should move to LV 426. I wonder what brings them to LV 426.
Opportunity. I
I
don't know.
guess. I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of LV 426, there are some shots where like they're in space. I think this looks so awesome. Like it's clearly like old 80s like effects, but like there's something so like real about how
They look
space
so good.
looks.
Yeah.
It looks awesome, and like the planet looks awesome. Multiple shots of this planet from outer space. Like, you know what it does? It feels so quiet when you're up there, and like I watch a lot of sci-fi, so like a show like The Expanse, for example, will have like a gorgeous like space scene or whatever, but there's something just so like, I don't know, classic about the way that this planet looks and like space looks, and it's awesome. It's so good.
It's the paintings, the matte paintings for the backgrounds, the sets they built, the miniatures, they all look so gritty and lived in and beautiful, even though like you can't say it's a you can't say it's a drab movie, even though like the color palette is like blue.
Yeah.
Because it's so like the details are all it's so gorgeous, I think.
Yeah.
Even though it's like what they made look gorgeous is like
the,
like
the,
a
the emptiness of
base on
space, like it just like
yeah,
it looks awesome.
like the ship that looks like a gun. That's pretty sick.
Okay, so I've been telling you about the show Reboot for like the last 6 years, and any fans, any of you guys in Canada listening to this podcast, if you ever watch Reboot, the first thing that you will recognize when you see Ripley's loader is that Dot Matrix used one of these loaders to fight Megabyte one time in Reboot.
Okay.
She kind of rebooted into like a Ripley-esque character. They were doing like an alien kind of show. And that was the first when I had seen that episode of Reboot before I ever watched Aliens, so I always think of that when I see this thing.
Reboot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see, what do we got next? Oh, I wanted to talk about the Queen's Nest, and the first time that
Mhm.
they like go into that area. This is awesome. First of all, I think it's like so awesome how they get to LV 426. They're looking for the colony. This place is deserted. It's a ghost town, and it's so creepy because they're just like they find that all of the colonists are like together in the same spot, and it's like clearly something is not right here because there's no way. And they go in, and there's all of this like alien skin and
Oh,
the fog and like the juice and blah, blah. And it's such an awesome like I was kind of telling I was saying earlier that like I resented this movie for not following in the steps of Alien, but dude, when you're in this scene, this is like peak Alien because it's such like a slow piece of visual horror that it's just like, oh my god. And when they find the girl in the wall, oh my
oh, they
god, this is
torched it. Yeah.
so awesome.
There's so many times where someone's like, "Kill me."
Oh, I mean, wouldn't you like if you had that thing in
Yeah.
you and
Yeah,
oh
yeah, there's a lot of nasty stuff. Great effects with that sort of thing. Like great body horror type stuff.
oh
Um
man.
I love yeah, this is sort of different, but I like how it's sort of like all heightened from the last one. I think they do that with Bishop too when he just gets annihilated.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He's, the milk
It's awesome.
everywhere. You see little tubes coming out of his tummy, and you're like, "Oh, buddy."
Actually, it's kind of along the same lines, but I think that this, talking about horror, that is, I think that this movie did a really good job of making the face huggers like a big threat as well. Where I don't think Alien really did that. They didn't really have the opportunity to do that because it was already
They
attached.
surprise you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was already on, John Hurt's face. So, but in this one, we've clearly
Mhm.
established like these things will attach to your face, lay eggs, and burst out of your chest. So like I think that they do like a really good job of making those things like very scary, even though they're like this big, right? Like that scene with Ripley and Newt is like incredibly intense. And
I don't know why
but
it made me think of like the raptors in Jurassic Park, like when they're ducking under all the tables and stuff like that. Like
kind of yeah,
yeah,
okay,
I
I
don't
can
know.
see that. I can see that.
It's got the vibes too of that. That's another one that's like got really scary stuff, but it's also like this big flashy movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's but yeah, them like hiding. Yeah, you don't really. I mean, you could also maybe make that as an argument of like maybe they're less threatening then because like they're actually like fighting back against them. But I think it's more just because they're aware, and that's actually very tense too. Like trying to avoid getting
Yeah.
one of these things on your face.
Well, I mean, I think that like the facehuggers clearly aren't the same level of threat as the xenomorphs. So like,
Oh
I think
no.
that fighting back against them makes total sense. And like, in that particular scene, they're like surviving. They're not like fighting back like until the Marines come for
Mhm.
backup. At which point, it's like very believable to me that are like, okay, we could just shoot these things. Whereas like with the aliens, it's like, okay, maybe these might need a little bit more.
Mhm.
But actually, speaking of the aliens, I do think that another thing that this movie does a really good job at that again, the first movie didn't do this, but because it didn't have an opportunity to do this, is that establishing that like we knew in the first movie that the aliens bleed acid, but like that is like a big deal in this movie. There's like
Mhm.
very real consequences to like shooting the aliens, and like it shows you like very clearly like this acid is no joke, and like it's a thing. It's
Yeah,
not
I
just like
love
a marketing gimmick. It's like the acid will get on people, it will get on weapons, it will get on the environment. It's like a big deal.
it's really clever stuff with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I like to more like well in the first one too like you don't see the alien do a lot, which I think is perfect for that movie. It's like it's supposed to be in the shadows. It's a haunted house movie, people
yeah.
say. I like how they actually I think through like special effects, like James Cameron is kind of able to show them like actually kind of moving more
Hmm.
like naturalistically, but still it still like looks very real because it's still like it's not like fully CG or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I loved just some of the shots of the xenomorphs. The best one I think is when Newt's in the water and
Oh
the one comes
man.
up and it's backlit. That's like a gorgeous
That's an
but
iconic
terrifying
shot.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that scene is. Whew.
So this is like, it shows more of the alien, which is inherently less scary, but they look so cool that I think it balances out. I don't know.
So I had a critique of the first Alien when we did our first Alien in review, which is available in the archives of OmegaMetroid.com. And I am going to repeat that critique for this one, where I think that the kills are still so-so. They're so-so.
Oh, okay.
Bishop aside, but he didn't die. Other than the Queen like, completely annihilating Bishop and just murdering that poor bloke, the kills are very tame. Like you, I don't know. Like you see the Sarge get kind of taken. You see Hudson get taken. Vasquez blows herself up. Like there's not really.
That was awesome.
Like that was a cool kill, but it wasn't like a cool, like we just talked about the movie Prey over on Virtual Theater, and like those are some cool kills in that movie. And obviously, you know, we've come a long way in terms of effects and stuff like that. And I think that like 90% of the time I really love that they use like the practical effects in this movie with like the alien costume and stuff, but it does kind of limit how you can do like really badass kills, you know. So I'm gonna throw that out there for this as well. I don't think it takes away from the movie, but I noticed it.
I think it's more like, one, I think because it's like this one is more of it's meant to be a little bit more fun, but I think it's more how they fit into like the story or the situation that makes them more satisfying to me. Like when Burke or whatever gets his, it feels very like satisfying. You know what I mean? So,
I wanted that dude to be like completely ripped apart because I'm a animal. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
I felt it was tasteful and satisfying. And there's like a lot of cool, like there's still a lot of some cool grimy stuff. I loved seeing like the alien get run over. It was pretty cool.
That was good. Well, there's some cool alien kills. I'll give you that.
I did love seeing some of them get just blown apart, which was great.
Oh,
like,
dude. When Ripley has the flamethrower in the nest at the end, I was like, yeah!
That's a great part. I love that. Where it's like, she doesn't go in and just like kill a bunch of aliens, like knock them out. It's like she just knows like it's the theme of motherhood. Like I can basically like hold this thing hostage because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't want me to kill its babies. You know, such a good part.
Which is funny because she really didn't have to do that because the planet was literally about to like explode. So
it was like an extra FU. Like she torches them, throws the grenades at them. Oh, that was so sweet. Yeah.
Let's talk about that alien queen. Dude.
Amazing design. Yeah.
So first of all, the reveal of the queen where Ripley and Newt stop and they slowly turn and the camera takes forever to turn around. But like the camera is moving so slow, but it's so effective because you're just like, what is this? And then you see that gross bulging sack full of alien eggs, and then this ginormous like this alien. It's like holy
crazy.
Oh my god!
Orange, yeah.
This looks so awesome, and like it's you know clearly like the regular xenomorphs have kind of been like knocked down the pole a little bit here to be presented as more of like an enemy that could be dealt with the right weaponry and stuff. But like when you see this is like when you saw the xenomorph in the first Alien, where it's like, oh my god, we're in trouble here. The reveal, just like the camera work, I feel like was so incredible because it was so slow, and you're just dying to see what the hell they're looking at. I forget what the name of that shot is, the one that Spielberg does where he zooms in on your face when you're looking at something crazy.
Oh, right.
But like this was like so effective, and like just I don't know, I've seen this movie like tons of times, and like last night I was just at the edge. I was like, turn around, like I was losing it. It was awesome. This scene is so good. This might be the best scene in the movie, actually.
Yeah, it's another case of something being built up well. This is in like a matter some moments, but I like that
because they're also talking earlier. They're like, what lays the eggs, and so it's kind of implied that you're gonna see
that scene.
Yeah.
I love when they're talking about that, and he's like, "It's like an ant colony, man." It's the big queen. And like, no, it's a
That's bees.
bee. Oh, I love that. And then
uh,
when it comes loose from the sack,
oh man.
and it starts coming after him, and then
Yeah,
they
well,
got
I
a
mean,
box. They
she's
got a box
basically
set.
like stripped the queen of her ability to reproduce. So I would be mad if I was that queen too. There's actually something like kind of almost sympathetic about the queen because like she is protecting her offspring as well. Although I think that there's a bunch of different online like essays and analysis about the contrast of motherhood that Ripley shows and the Queen shows and stuff like that. I kind of feel bad when she has to like rip the sack off of her and she's going crazy, fighting Ripley for the rest of the movie. But yeah, that
Well, you do start because there are parts where they show like they cut the power, so you start to think like, oh, they can like think a little bit, you know what I mean? And it's like
yeah,
they are like when you get down to it, it seems like they're just kind of like animals, that are just doing what they do to survive. The movie doesn't fully examine that, though I do like that the I think it's Burke kind of plays the card of like we're not gonna like he tries to be sympathetic and like we're not gonna just exterminate this whole like alien
yeah,
race or whatever, and it's like you don't care about this, you know what
yeah,
I mean?
totally.
I'd
And
say
everyone else is like, yeah, we are.
that would maybe what I would have been done. What I would have done if I made Alien 3. It would have been about that. It would have been like maybe let's try to not kill all the aliens or something. It would have been a total like inversion, but it would have
Kind
been
of
like maybe acknowledging them as like animals that are just doing what they
what
do
they're
to survive.
yeah, kind of
I
like
guess the new ones
Jurassic
are
Park
kind of
esque with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the new ones are sort of getting there a little bit because they were sort of showing how they're like how they're made, and I guess like you know what I mean, like they're like someone cares
Yeah.
for them. I don't know.
I think that well we'll talk about them when we get to the new ones in Alien in review, but like I think that there's like a very desecrated way that these things were created, and I guess in like a lot of ways too it's a desecrated way that these things exist because like in order to breed they essentially have to I guess if you wanted to get heavy because they almost like rape somebody by like putting their tentacle down them, and then with their life comes someone else's death. So it's kind of like a desecration almost in a lot of ways, which I think is like super fascinating. I think these creatures are so awesome. But yeah, this queen is like just this scene was so intense, and this is the last scene that I wrote down. I did make a note that just like the lighting and the cinematography just looks awesome throughout the escape sequence. It looks awesome pretty much throughout the whole movie actually. But like in this escape sequence, just the flashing lights again, it looked awesome in the first Alien. It looks incredible in this one. So yeah, just it's awesome. It was an awesome scene.
Yeah.
Cool final battle too. I like the final battle. Kind of similar to the first, pays homage a little bit, but
oh yeah. Well, that becomes almost like a thing in Alien. Is like there's always like the fake out or whatever,
Yeah,
and I kind of like it.
I kind of do too. It's kind of like when you, for example, in Metroid, like there's always an escape sequence, and like you kind of roll your eyes at it, but you're like, all right, this is Metroid, so like I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's dude, we talked about it earlier, but I just want to talk about it again. I feel so bad for Bishop when that queen just she just annihilates this poor guy. It just makes me kind of actually laugh for some sick reason every time.
Yeah.
Just
well there's a lot of things I laugh at, but like it's also like awesome. I don't know how to describe it because I think certain people think it's like cheesy, but I think it's like both funny and awesome. Like
yeah.
There's a minor moment where I started cackling, but it's sick is when the Kyle Reese guy jumps through the glass, like to help Ripley and Newt. He like just busts through the glass, and it's like awesome, and it's like he's heroic, but it's also just funny to watch a guy charge straight into glass. And same thing with what's that?
If you were in a room with a bunch of facehuggers,
Yeah.
I'd throw myself through a glass pane.
I think it just looks funny no matter how you shake it. Same thing uh Bishop getting torn apart. It's like it's gruesome, it's sad, it's hilarious.
Oh,
Like I don't know. I think it's one of the best things. It's one of the coolest things in the movie.
yeah. So, yeah, that was all my kind of random scattered thoughts on the specific scenes in Alien. I don't know if you have any, or if you want to wrap it up here.
I think you about covered it. Like I said,
I
just
think I probably did. Yeah.
everything on display here. You talked about the cinematography. We talked about the effects. The music is awesome.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. The music, the score is wicked.
It wasn't Jerry who did the Star Trek stuff, but it was James Cameron's pal. What's it? James something. James Horner did it, and he's a legend. He did My Heart Will Go On. He did the Avatar soundtrack. Yeah, and he's crushing it here with, like I said, even just some of those little moments. Not just there's obviously when Ripley starts driving that truck and things get big and it becomes like an action movie. It's like amazing. It's unreal. It's like this is classic movies right here. But he also captures those little creepy moments so well. Yeah, I love pretty much everything about this movie.
If you have not seen Aliens, or you haven't seen it in a long time, go and check it out. Definitely worth your while. If you're a Metroid fan, you definitely owe it to yourself to check this movie out and pay homage to it. There's a lot of stuff that this movie does, a lot of themes, a lot of sequences, props even, that the Metroid games have kind of liberally borrowed. So yeah, go and give it a watch. And as just a reminder, this is the Alien in Review series. So we've done Alien 1, we've done Aliens, we covered Alien Isolation as well, for Inspired by Metroid. So we're going to keep going. We're doing Alien 3 next, which is a incredibly controversial movie, which I'm really looking forward to that. I think I've only seen it once. I think I've only seen Alien 3 and 4 once, and I never watched them again. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I actually wanted to watch it last night, but I want to save it for when we do it.
It's a tricky before I don't want to say anything about it, but I will say after you watch this, I think it's a similar challenge to after you watch Terminator 2, where you're like, okay, what do we do now? Like what should happen next if you were going to do a sequel?
You know what I want to say? I really like Terminator 3.
I know,
I really do. But
yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but
I think it's kind of mediocre until the ending. Actually, I think the ending is what sells.
Okay,
me. Yeah.
I think regardless, it's still like it almost was like both the first two movies, Terminator and Aliens, and like creepy and like man, there's something still out there. This is like they put a like nice cherry on top of it. Almost, it feels like triumphant.
Yeah.
Like they blow up all the aliens, or they stop Judgment Day. So it's like, what do you do now? And so both, I think, are an inversion of what you expect, because it's like, well, we got to make a movie,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll talk about it, I'm sure. But
Alien in Review will roll on. Goo and I are going to do this whole series. We're going to do Alien 3, 4.
I just watched all of them, so I'm going to rewatch them again.
I can't wait to talk about Prometheus, actually. I'm really looking forward to that. Covenant. I don't know. Maybe we'll do AVP.
Already done a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a second AVP we gotta watch.
Maybe we won't do the first AVP, but we'll do the second. Yeah.
No, we gotta do both.
Well, I mean, we've done AVP.
Well, we've done Prometheus though too.
That's true. Okay, you're right. We gotta do both. Yeah,
it's legal. It's fair game.
And we're
gonna do all the arcade games too.
Yeah,
shooter games.
That sounds sweet. All right. Well, Gooey, thank you for joining me today and talking aliens. This was great.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a fun movie night, by the way, in the Omega Metroid Discord server. Goo and I were there holding court, showing people
and cherry on top, Mario Brothers movie when they saved the day, and the king is defungused. Who is it but Lance Hendrickson? He's the king at the end. Yeah.
There you go.
Which is very strange. Why is he there?
What a way to end on this episode. This is I had such a good time talking about Alien. I knew I would, but I love talking about the series. And I love talking movies with you, Goo. So thank you for coming on. Make sure that you check out Goo and I over on Virtual Theater, the podcast about video game movies and the stories that shape them. We have tons and tons and tons of episodes that you can go through.
Coming up, we're going to have a commentary we did for the Doom movie, which I think also is heavily influenced by this movie.
Definitely.
And you're going to want to hear what we have to say about the movie live.
Yeah.
It's all high color commentary.
Yeah, check that out. Okay, well, we are going to get out of here. We want you guys to check us out over on Twitter. Of course, I am at Spiteri316. Goo is at Gooey Fame, and we are at Omega Metroid Pod. Check out the website for all your Metroid needs, guides, maps, whatever you got it's there. We also have a Patreon that you can check out and support if you feel like you got a few extra bucks to spare. That'd be awesome. You can get a couple bonus shows, and make sure that you're checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, and most importantly, recommend us to that Metroid fan in your life. If you watch us on YouTube, thank you for checking us out, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.